first off, thank you, Mike, for hosting this, and thank all of you for coming out this morning. I think we've got a lot of energy on this race, and as we should. The stakes are high. There's a lot on the line in 2014, and the MDP plays a large role, and who runs that organization is important. As you know, my name's Lon Johnson, and I'm running to be your next state party chair. I'm doing that because we need a change. We need a change, and that starts at the leadership levels of our party. Like many of you, I'm very frustrated. We continuously see gains at the federal level. You know, we've won the last 6 presidentials. We've won the last 6 Senate races. Well, that's not translating down to the state level. In the last 16 years, we've lost 4 straight Secretary of State races, 4 straight Attorney General races. We've only held a majority for 4 years at the State House and never in the Senate. Why? Have you worked any less? Are candidates not as skilled? Are they that good? You know, does the Michigan voter just magically switch values when they look at the state ballot candidates? No. In part, the answer lies with how we are researching, how we are developing, how we are our issues, and how we're delivering our message, and how we're recruiting. We can do better. I'm a big believer in the politics of addition. What we saw with the president, why is the president so successful? The man is the personification of addition. That's God-given talent. But what he had to work for, what he had to build, and it took time, was the campaign that took all those new people and brought them in and said, here's how you help. Here's how you can make change. Here's specifically what you can do. You know, he took the folks that were disaffected and said, hey, here's how you go from being a supporter to being a volunteer. Here's how you go from being a volunteer to being a contributor. Here's how to go from being a contributor to a raiser, compounding their involvement in every step of the way. And that took organization, that took tactics, that took strategy, and that took a team. And that's what they built over there. And we can do the same. We've got the issues. It's not as if we're in a state, this isn't Arizona or you know, this isn't Idaho, right? This is Michigan. You know, why are we losing? We can do better. Change. What that means to me is, one, we need to create, change the executive structure at the party. We need a chair and we need an executive director, both full-time. The chair's role, raise money, keep the table together and expand it, and deliver message. The executive director is to implement the goals of that table, day to day. Second, we need to raise money. We've got to be an equal partner. The Michigan Democratic Party has to be an equal partner when we sit at that table, to labor, to our friends in the environment, to the women's community, to the LGBT. When we're not an equal partner, we will never be greater than the sum of our parts. We've got, you know, the sum of our parts will be the sum of our parts. We need an MDP that's greater, that will be greater than the sum of our parts will be greater than the whole. We've got to have an equal partnership, and that takes money. I've done it before. You know, we've got in Michigan 30 people who write somewhere in the neighborhood between $30 and $50 million out there. We've got about a $3 million operating budget per election cycle. But we've got $30 to $50 million where individuals are writing to Democratic causes and concerns and committees. It should be our goal. We're not going to get half that. We're not going to get even 20% of it. But it should be our goal to get 10 to 15% of it. And we need to go, and that just takes work. And let them know, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're doing it. Here's where your check is going. It's not just going to some, you know, nebulous fund that's going to just put money on the tube in October. It takes more than that to win. Third, we need to increase our outreach to minority, women, and youth. 2014 African American turnout. Barack Obama will not be on the ballot, and we cannot start in June of 2014 or go into neighborhoods in September and expect that the community is going to be, feel engaged and empowered and vote. We've got to start right now. You know, why do we always have to wait, you know, from Celinda Lake to put out a poll a month later and say this is the year of the woman? Well, no kidding. You know, why are we waiting? You know, we've got great issues out there. We've got to start delivering them. Next, I'm going to be brief here. Next, we need to bring in technology. Technology to technology. The internet just wasn't invented last year, right? It's here to stay. And we have to look at use technology both on how we figure out what our message is and how we understand which voters to talk to, but also on how we deliver it. People today, they get inspired, they inspire others, they communicate, they educate themselves, they conduct commerce all online. And we've got to use those tools the way that we saw it was been used in the Barack Obama campaign. And if we don't, shame on us. Last, recruit. We should give no quarter on any district in this state. None. And as many of you know, I ran in 2012 in a very tough race, in a very tough district. And I hear all the time, well, they've got us on the redistricting. They've got us on the redistricting. What are we going to do? Just lay over and not fight? No, we've got to fight. When you look at the state house races, and I'll just use that as an example, we had 25 races that were determined by less than 5,000 votes. So which means a 2,500 vote swing would have moved those races. 20 out of 25, you know how many we lost? 21. We've got to do more than just show up. These are 25 individual state house races that need the tools, that need an infrastructure. And I get it. I get that these lines are drawn horribly. I get it. But we have no other option but to fight, and fight 25 different races and fight hard. A little bit about me. In the last 20 years, I started working on campaigns in 1990. I grew up downriver. I ran all over the country running races. I came in 2000. I worked for Al Gore for 3 years. 2002, Congressman Dingell called and asked if I'd come home and work for him, and I did so. 2000, I worked for the Democratic National Committee. I worked for the DSCC. I ran my own races. Currently, I work for a business that invests in and grows U.S. manufacturing companies. I live in northern Michigan with my wife, Juliana Smoot. This race isn't against Mark. It isn't against, it isn't against labor. It isn't against, this is not what this race is about. It's about change. And it's about how do we add to who we are. This is about the future of the Michigan Democratic Party and how we're going to build victory for 2014. So, thank you very much.
So in the email to both Lon and Mark, I told them to give an intro, and then we do about 10 minutes of questions for each of them separately. So we'll do about 10 minutes of questions for Lon, and then Mark will come up and give his talk. So do you want to recognize everybody when they raise their hand?
I want you. Okay. First lesson in running for office.
Okay. All right. We'll start with Marty.
Thank you for coming and speaking to us. I appreciate it. How much did the Democratic Party in Michigan get outspent by in the last election, and what do you plan to do to raise the money?
I don't know the number, but I presume is significant. But money isn't the matter here.
Well, you brought it.
No. But we've got the values. Barack Obama was outspent in this state, and we still won by 9 points. The president did, with relatively little resources and no visits from him. We've been screaming with no yard signs. We all know that. No organizers, right?
We have yard signs in Washington.
Right, yeah.
We have over 1,000 yard signs. We did it ourselves.
That's right.
Had to. But we need all this. We need to create the tools so that our candidates and our county parties and our activists can use the anger that's out there. There are people that what we've seen in Lansing that's draconian on choice, draconian on environmental regulation, on LGBT issues. You name it down the board. People are angry, and so the question for us is, how do we take this moment and get these folks engaged? And that's going to take money. It's going to take tools. Now, the way we get this money, we've got, again, between $30 and $50 million being written every single cycle from individuals from individuals in Michigan to the DNC, the DSCC, the DCCC. I mean, you know, all the acronyms, all our candidates. We just need it. It's work. As chairman, I've got to go and just sit down and make the case one at a time. Fundraiser, fundraising, fundraising, fundraising. And I've done it. I was a fundraiser for Al Gore. You know, with Congressman Dingell, I was the campaign manager, but I think we raised just between $2 and $3 million in about 6 months' time. And my own campaign, I raised over $300,000. It's, you know, you've got to have the funds. 9 to 5, you raise it. After 5, you bring in the smart folks to spend it. And that's what I want to do.
All right, so we'll do Rob first, then Doug, then here, then yeah.
I am the,
Hold on,
I am the current candidate for your post, and you're overlooking me deliberately.
All right.
You know that there's no better spokesman for the Democratic Party.
Indeed. I'll get to you. You're burning up time, Tom.
Myself, Thomas Partridge.
You're burning up time.
We'll get you.
The speaker's list is Rob first, then Doug, then we'll come back. I'm going to try to do both sides, okay?
Yeah, my name is Roger Casey. By the grace of God, I'm the elected delegate in Ypsi Township. And actually, this question is going to both you and Mark Brewer. Okay, because I say actually this question is going to both of them, Mark Brewer and him.
Yes.
Okay, and this is a very solemn meeting for me. All right, I've witnessed and experienced where qualified African Americans candidates running for office was either neglected leadership support or outright snubbed for a fellow candidate of a different race. For instance, in 2008, as Supreme Court candidate Judge Deborah Thomas, campaign manager for this county, I, my kids, and the entire Democratic Party suddenly and hopelessly watching disbelief and horror, the nomination and rules of our vote and our votes being manipulated by former and misguided, bigoted union leaders who gave the nomination to Diane Hathaway, who I was the only one at her trial last week to give her support and the witness that she made the plea, because I was taught to show love even when you fall short.
What's the question?
I want to know what you're going to do to ensure qualified black candidates be fairly represented and supported at the Democratic and party conventions or running for office, state offices as well, and the unions to fairly compromise on the issue, because the unions kind of like manipulated that and threw it over and basically bullied our chair.
Okay. Well, thanks for the question. And let's talk about, you know, showing love for even when you fall short. And that's what we have to do as a party. We have to take a long, hard look at what happened in 2012 and understand how do we make sure it doesn't happen in 2014 and beyond. And I believe in the politics of addition. The politics of addition on all fronts, in terms of constituency groups, in terms of tactics, in terms of staffing, in terms of how we engage the community. And specifically, what I want to do is we cannot wait till June of 2014, or even worse, to go in October of 14 to engage the largest constituency in the state, African American, the largest constituency to the Democratic Party, and that's the African American community. It starts with recruitment, number one. You know, we can come up with all the greatest plans and programs, but all of us know the most long-term and best program won't replicate or beat a self-interested politician whose name is on the line, or her name is on the line. What we need to do is to bring, I want to make it my goal to sit down and have as many African American candidates on the ballot as possible. And the African community is not a monolith. When you look at, you know, we've got different centers, and it's not just Detroit, you know, it's not just Flint or Saginaw. We've got statewide many precincts out there that are between 30 and 50% African American that will never receive the traditional geographically based get out the vote models. And the way we do that is we go into those communities, we break out a map, we figure out where those precincts are, and we get African Americans running from drain commissioner all the way up. And guess what? You know, the stars of our party are in there. They're in there. They're in that group. They will win. And that will be, they'll bring new people and they'll bring new donors and they'll bring in, you know, what I want to do is to bring in, you know, as you know, part of my frustration is, look at this room. We had to bring more chairs in. When's the last time you saw that in a Democratic function? That you had to bring in more chairs. We need to do that. And the way you do that is to not to worry, not to confront, and not to bury our problems, but to bring them out. You know, when you see when part of my frustration of why organizationally we're in so much trouble is that we bring people in and you go to these meetings and the deal was cut 2 hours before or 2 days before. You know, and that lack of transparency and that lack of respect and empowerment for the voters and for the activists is what's killing our party. So.
And I'd like to mention, you know, right now, hold it, mass incarceration, slavery has just been introduced back to the state, and damn it, I haven't heard not one politician mention it except Jeff Urey and a few other ones.
All right.
Well, look, we got to fight. The only way we do this is start with the chair of the Democratic Party, building an operation that respects and hears you.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks. Who's up next? Yeah, Doug, and then the purple shirt, and then I'm going to go back over here. Then Susan. Yes. Doug, go ahead.
The Obama machine has something that we don't have, and that's Barack Obama.
Yep.
I feel that,
And therefore,
I don't think we should focus. I think the biggest issue is getting a majority in the Senate. I think we will retake the House, but it's been 28 years since, and we're never going to have progressive legislation unless we have both houses. What 3 things would you do to get powerful, transcendent candidates to run for the state Senate?
Well, you know, I think that the role of the Michigan Democratic Party is 3 things in terms of looking forward to 2014. One, we need to make sure that whoever wins those primaries for the Senate or for the House or for Secretary of State or AG or Governor, the cupboard's not bare. So that they walk in, we have a well-funded Michigan Democratic Party. 2, that we've come in and they're walking into a political and a messaging and a research operation that's moving. That's not sitting there, you know, they come in and say, well, what do we do? You know, we have an operation that's ready to roll. A field army, a message army, a research operation that's going. And 3rd, I need to soften up the ground. The Michigan Democratic Party has to soften up the ground for, you know, to sit down with Gretchen Whitmer and say, okay, look, who are your top 3 Senate targets? Sit down with Tim Grimo and say, hey, who are your top 5 or 6 House candidates? And we need to start softening the ground. Those are the 3 responsibilities. But to the large extent, you know, obviously the Michigan Democratic Party has to stay out of primaries, but let's go out and start recruiting. You know, when somebody gets a phone call, when, you know, a 35-year-old young lawyer gets a phone call from the Michigan Democratic Party chair, it means something. You know, we've got to build, and the party has a responsibility to go out there, engage, and recruit.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
so I'm the lady in the purple shirt.
All right.
My name is Katie Oppenheim. I'm the president of the Nurses Union at the University of Michigan and a member of Michigan Nurses Association. People love nurses. We're not. You know, it helps us, right, when we're knocking on doors. So if you had there's mixed.
He'll repeat the question.
There's mixed review. I haven't asked the question yet. The question is, there's mixed reviews about how the party did or didn't help us with this right to work battle. That we fought hard, and this was labor and non-labor people fighting for people to have the right to have a union, and for people to need to pay for those services. So if you had been chair of the Democratic Party during this fight, how would you have addressed this in terms of the party's assistance in this fight?
Well, thank you. What I want to talk about, you know, what the party's responsibility is to work with the table, and labor is a part of that table. So is the environmental community, so is the women's community, so is the LGBT community. We've got to work to expand this table and to, you know, we've got to have a partner. How I would have worked, I wasn't there. I was running for the State House, and this is not a dodge. But how will I work? At some point, we've got to have a traffic cop who says, 7 initiatives are too much. First off, we laid the defeat in part by layering up all these initiatives on there. And all they had to say was vote no. Right? I walked those doors. I walked 8,000 doors in my campaign, and people would ask me, oh, what about these legislative, you know, I don't have a half hour to go through all our allies, you know, deal. And when we laid it, just say no, just say no. But that being said, you know, on the right to work issue, we have, you know, on the right to work issue, the party has a responsibility to stand up. Once something's on the ballot, the party has a responsibility to stand up with, you know, with our allies. We had a responsibility there to research and to poll and to understand what the message is so that we can go carry that. You know, I wasn't there at the table, but we do have to understand what happened. You know, I'm dedicated to understanding what happened without blame. Because to go into blame is nothing but the politics of subtraction. And politics is the art of addition. And we've got, Michigan Democratic Party for too long has not been has not been able to stand on its own. And we've got to have the machine, the political machine, and the political tactical operations in these counties. On top of that, the cash to be an equal partner with labor, to be an equal partner with the LGBT community, to be an equal partner of the environmental community, and so forth. So when the party's an equal partner, things move smoother.
Thank you very much.
Who's up next over here? Susan, right? Yep.
Good morning. I want to follow up on Mr. Casey's question, and this again will be to both candidates. What has been your history in developing African American candidates? As you've shown, you're an example of candidates being groomed by being on other teams. Our state legislature, to my knowledge, do not have any African Americans on staff. What will you do through the party and working with others in developing future candidates of color?
Mm-hmm. Number one, you know, my personal history. You can call Donna Brazil and ask her. You can call Patrick Gaspard. Donna Brazil was my boss. You can call Patrick Gaspard, President Obama's political director. He was my boss.
What have you done?
Pardon me. I know. You know, in terms of these people have seen me under the fire. You know, it's easy to be for diversity when the shots aren't being fired. But you can go to anyone in the community and ask me. You know, when you were in the heat of the political battle, were you inclusive? Were you working with other folks in terms of bringing more to the table? We have to have a staff, not only a staff, but a contributor base and a political operation that looks like Michigan. And if you don't, you'll fail. Even if you don't see what's in my heart and soul, you know, I am out here to win. And if we don't engage the political community of the African American community, if we don't engage them, we won't have the turnout and we won't win. And to do that is to sit down, recruit the candidates, and create the programs, and get those candidates and those programs funded. And we start. I guess the biggest thing is start now. You show respect by starting now, and it's got to be organic. And frankly, if it's run out of Lansing, if it's run out of the MDP, chances are it probably isn't organic, and chances are it won't work. We've got to go into the communities, and it's got to come from the communities and not from the MDP. I'm not saying we're not going to hold it accountable, but it's got to come from the community, and it's got to be funded by the MDP.
All right, gentleman in the leather jacket was next, then somebody over here will be next.
Yes.
When am I going to speak?
In a minute, Tom. You know what? Come on, not today, okay? Not today. I've been yelled at since I was a kid.
Let's stop the discrimination. Only one member of this organization
I'm immune to it. I'm immune to it,
endorsed
Tom.
publicly
You're up next.
Obama.
You're up next.
That's not so.
Ask your question. Come on,
My name's Keith Kindred. I live in Ann Arbor. I'm a teacher in South Line. I'm a vice president for our local teachers union and also an MEA rep. First of all, I want to preface my comments by saying I agree with you. It's not about blame, but it is about introspection and looking at what worked, what didn't work. From my perspective, I would agree with you that it seems to me that when it comes to political campaigns, we get to the business of it too late. We don't really hear coordination from the state party or the MEA until September or October for the November election. And by then, it's just too late. So what my question for you is, can you give us, I mean, I agree with your premise there, but can you give us some sense of how your approach would look different?
Yep.
How do you reach out to someone like me or groups like me in a different way?
Well, the question is, how do I start now to reach out and start planning? I'll answer it in two ways. Number one, you're right. We don't. Somebody over there said we don't have Barack Obama on the ballot. You're right. But what we do have is a legislature that is just running over choice. We have a legislature that's just running over the environment. We have a legislature that's running over labor. And we've got, and the results of that are all these people that are angry. So the question is, how do we engage them? And here's the second part of that answer. I would go in to see my wife occasionally at the campaign when I was in the middle of mine. She was in Chicago and I was in northern Michigan. But I was shocked. I would walk in and there would be all these young staffers that had no idea. If I walked up to them and said, hey, do you know who SEIU is? Do you know what MEA is? No, they had no idea. Their job, there's a whole new way of organizing and grabbing people and engaging them and getting them motivated. And that's what we have to do. We have to come in and pull, look, God bless the ward healers because that's who delivered so many victories for us, for Michigan. But politics is no longer conducted that way. People no longer communicate that way. We've got to bring in the teams with, right now who've never even walked a precinct in their life. But that individual would be more effective in terms of how do we develop our message and deliver it. What my first 60 days will be: stop, breathe, let's come together, let's figure out what are we trying to achieve, what's our goal, what's our strategy, and then we lay out the tactics as we progress. And those tactics have to use every single latest technology. This is no longer about, well, I've got a union and we've got to do it this way because we got to support that candidate, or I've got I've got this constituency that I've got to take care of, and that's these ways that the way when we have institutions dictate our strategy and tactics, we are not working the way that we should be, and we've got, again, and this is not about the politics of subtraction. Labor and environmental community and women need an equal partner in the NDP. And that's what I will do. And that's the way we do that is technology, technology, technology.
All right, so somebody, question over here. You're up next, and then we'll take one over here too.
Okay, my question is, how can you guys improve communication on let's say just generally what's happening in Lansing? Day-to-day information is not getting out there. Because we've been to meetings, I've heard Jeff Irwin explain things. Even the approaches that the Republicans are getting, opening this up. If you look at our local news site.com, forget it.
Yep.
Restaurant reviews come first. There's some blog sites that are good, like Alexa blog.
The biggest problem, she's asking, how do we reach out to let them know, hey, what's the inside scoop? What's really happening?
People every day hearing this.
Yes. We've got two levels here. We've got the activists and the party folks that drive us on the ground, and then we actually have the voting audience. So I'll answer it in two parts. One is, why do you have to go to Electablog or Michigan Liberal to think that you're getting the truth? Why? Right? We've got email. The Michigan Democratic Party's got a blog. The Michigan Democratic Party has email. We need to tell folks exactly what's happening all the time. 100% transparency. On the money, on the field, on the inside games, what's going on in Lansing, how many state Senate seats we're going to target. Let's be adults. You're going to go out there and expend your energy and time walking doors and putting up signs. You deserve, let's treat you like an adult. You deserve to know what's going on and how you fit into that strategy. Second, as far as how we talk to voters, it goes back to the technology issue. Technology, technology, technology. We have to understand, and it's two parts. One, use technology, modeling, and data analytics, and digital optimization to understand what is our message, who they are, and then using the second part here of technology of delivering what we've discovered to voters. It's a new day in organizing. It is a new day, and the ward healers are, in my opinion, Barack Obama put the ward healers out of business. That's what his campaign proved.
One more question over here, and then one last question over here. Who's up? Tom's up. Tom's up.
Tom, go ahead.
I'm a recent candidate for the Michigan House of Representatives that ran against Jeff Irwin. I'm a recent candidate for the 18th District Michigan Senate seat. I ran against Rebecca Warren and Pamela Byrne. I ran on a platform of uniting the Democratic Party in Washtenaw County, in southeastern Michigan, and across the state. A campaign founded on uniting and becoming much more inclusive. And to this day, we don't have a chairmanship of the Central Democratic Party committee that's willing to share his office and his power with a co-chairman or vice chairperson, and I should have said co-chairperson, that would be of a different gender and a different race. Will you, if elected party chair, be willing to propose that co-chairs be also elected to share your power and position, and or vice chairs that would represent women and minorities? And would you also institute the advisory Democratic Party, State Democratic Party advisory committee that would be as inclusive as possible and represent Democrats and also independents from across the state?
Good question. You know, so his question is, would I institute a co-chair, and would I, or vice chair, or how would we include different opinions?
Plural.
Thanks, Tom.
As far as the co-chair, and I think maybe Mark may agree, I don't know, but my opinion, no. You've got to have one chair, and you need to have an executive director, and it's go time. We do not have to sit here and argue and be constantly engaged in attacks between two co-chairs. That won't work. We saw it when Mark was, when Butch came in, it just won't work. Second, as far as being inclusion, there are vice chairs. There are there is the table. There is plenty of inclusion there. At the Michigan Democratic Party, there's structure there. Now, whether in fact that occurs, that's for everyone here to understand. But what I'm committed to is 100% transparency. Why are we having, again, why did we bring chairs in? Because what we're talking about today for the Michigan Democratic Party matters. And when we constantly keep it on a level and we treat you as if you're adults, that's right, it will matter. And you'll be engaged. I won't have to bend your arm to come to meetings, because what we're going to make some big decisions in this room, and you better be there. Yep. And if you don't come up, well, you know what? You're out of the decision. But when we talk about big decisions, and when you feel respected and empowered, people will show up.
All right, so one more last question from over here. If there isn't one, we're going to let Mark come up. Go ahead.
What would you most like to have seen come from the Central Democratic Party? I was not working in the Obama campaign when he did, but he most forcibly is how early they identified supporters who would work and how early they identified people who would vote.
Repeat that.
Well, yes. In my own race, what would I like to see change? Number one, Mark went to the mat for my race. Individually, professionally, and personally, went to the mat and was a friend to me that entire time. He paid attention to that, and he paid attention to me, and so this is not in any way, shape, or form of complaint of Mark. But I think what we need to do is have, at least for the first 30 days after we recruit a candidate, we need to have campaign in a box, right? Here's your website, put your photo up. Here's one pager, right? Here's 2 sentences on education, here's 2 sentences. Yep, here's your Facebook page. Hey, guess what? We're going to take your Facebook page. If you want, if you're okay with us, make us an administrator, and we'll put up posts for you until you get on your feet and go.
I love that.
Right? Here's a Twitter account. We're going to give you Twitter feeds. Oh, by the way, here's the County Democratic Party that's already got 10,000 likes. Why do I have to go as a candidate and beat my head against this rock? The Democratic Party's been around since the 1800s. What's going on here? The Internet's been around for 10. We need to have the infrastructure here so that when you walk in, you're prepared. And I've been running races for 20 years, and thankfully I knew the order of which things had to get done. But it took me 30 days just to get on my feet as a candidate. But that being said, on a personal level, Mark went all out for me. But we need to do more, because if I want to make it my goal to recruit 100 new candidates under the age of 35. We have a golden opportunity from 08. In 2008 and 2012, Barack Obama brought an entire new wave into this state. What are we doing to say, hey, do you like walking doors for Barack Obama? How about walking them for yourself? Why don't you run for drain commissioner? Why don't you run for commissioner? Why don't you get engaged? And that will have a longer impact, more than anything I or the state party could ever do. And by the way, when you run, here you go. Here's your first 30 calls for money. Here's your first 20 calls for media. Here's your website. Here's your Facebook page. You know, it's, again, campaign in a box. Here you go. I guess I'll just close here. Sure. I want to thank everyone here. I'm going to be around. Come grab me. You know, I'll give you my email address. I'll give you my mobile number. I'll be here the entire time. I work.
Your email address?
johnsonlawn@hotmail.com.
Is that on the sheet?
No, johnsonlawn@hotmail.com. I'm the oldest guy in the world with a Hotmail account. So. Look, we need you. Politics of Addition starts with you. Politics of Addition means the party gives you the tools you need to go out and deliver the message. We got to make it easy for you. I want to put a studio in the headquarters, you know, in the MDP, a video, and do the whiteboards that we saw so successful. Let's put a PDF graphic artist to throw out there. Politics communication lasts. Information on, the shelf life of news information is about 4 hours now. Yeah. And within 2 hours, when a Republican says something stupid, let's be honest. We need you, not only for this race, but we need you to be involved in 2014, and we can win. We have every reason to be hopeful, so let's go win. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that went okay. So we're going to try having Mark Brewer come up and give his talk, and he'll get some time to speak, and then we'll do questions and answers again. Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to see everybody. Let me start by giving folks a little background about me, because I think you need to know the kind of where I come from and how I came up through the grassroots of this party. I started as a club president of a club like this over in Macomb County. I was active in my county party as an officer. I was active in my district party as an officer. I was even a young Dem. Where's Mark Liss? Mark Liss and I were young Dems together many years ago. And the approach I've taken as party chair is to be part of the grassroots of this party and work my way up. I travel, and I have traveled throughout this entire state. I just got back from my annual winter trip to the Upper Peninsula. So I've worked very, very hard to reach out to folks and to really be a grassroots chair. And that is why, as of yesterday, 60 local party leaders from throughout the state have already endorsed me for re-election, and I've got hundreds of pledged delegate commitments at the convention, because I've got a track record that people can see and people can believe in. Now, one of my shortcomings is that I don't go around and brag about the stuff that I do. I just go out and do it. We had a question about finances here a moment ago. The Michigan Democratic Party raised and spent $25 million last year on the elections. But do you hear me run around bragging about that? No. I go out and do the work. When I became chair, this party was nearly $1 million in debt. I didn't complain about it. I went out and eliminated that debt, and we have never been in debt since. I have been a responsible steward of your money, and we raised an enormous amount of money, but again, I don't run around and brag about it. But not only do we raise that kind of money, but we've become a much more efficient party. We have saved candidates in this state millions of dollars by the way that we do our mail programs, printing, and other kinds of things. There's two ways to raise money. One is to raise it, and we raise it in big quantities. The other is to save it and to spend it efficiently. And we have done that to the benefit of a lot of candidates over the years. There have been a couple of questions about diversity in the party. Let me tell you about some of the things that we have done. Last cycle, and again, I don't run around bragging about this, we trained thousands of precinct delegates in the urban areas of this state. We trained hundreds of candidates and helped hundreds of candidates in municipal and local races. We've been active, and that's a program that I started. That program did not exist when I became chair of the Michigan Democratic Party. You want to measure diversity? Did you take a look at our national convention delegation last summer? a delegation I helped put together, the most diverse delegation in the history of this party. The largest LGBT set of delegates, more African Americans, more Hispanics, and on and on. The largest Arab American delegation we have ever had. I have worked to make this party more diverse. Look at our executive committee. Far more diverse than it's ever been, and it looks like Michigan, unlike we see in the other party. We hear a lot of talk about social media and forms of communication. The Michigan Democratic Party is at the front ranks of state parties in terms of social media, and we are always looking to do better. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, join our email list. There's lots of ways that we are out there every day taking advantage of that technology. Let me talk a little bit about what I think we need to do going forward, and then we'll open it up for questions. I think, among many other things, if I had to pick 3 things that are critically important, I think these are the things that we need to do. First, we need to recreate, on our own unfortunately, the Obama campaign infrastructure. Some of you may have read that the Obama campaign basically has said, we're going to take our OFA operation and lobby on behalf of the president. That's great. That's important. But all of that information, all of that infrastructure is now not available to any state party in the country. So one of the things that we're going to do, that we have to do, is to recreate that infrastructure for ourselves. I think that's critically important. And that will enable us to have the constant campaign that we need. We need redistricting reform in this state badly. There's a lot of talk about how we've done in legislative races and congressional races. I don't know how many of you saw the New York Times article last weekend that talked about how badly gerrymandered Michigan's congressional districts are. And the same thing is true at the legislative level. We have great candidates. We have terrific issues. We have adequate resources. The problem is that the districts are gerrymandered. John Dingell and his colleagues around the ballot last fall took a majority of the vote in the congressional races, but we got 1/3 of the seats because of the way the districts are drawn. Jeff Irwin, I saw here, and his colleagues in the House, they took a majority of the vote last year, but because of the way the districts are drawn, Tim Grimel is not the Speaker of the House. So we as a party have to embark on redistricting reform. Some of you may not remember, it was a long time ago, but in the 50s and 60s, this party was in a similar situation. And we embarked as a party on a redistricting reform project, which culminated in that reform in the 1960s. We need to do that again. Finally, looking toward 2014, I think it's critically important that we get an early consensus on our candidates. If we've learned anything from having divisive primaries, late decisions being made, it's that it's impossible to put together a statewide campaign in 2 months. So we need to be about the task as a party of finding candidates at the top of the ballot, giving them a fair opportunity, and then trying to reach a consensus on a candidate. Maybe we do that through an endorsement convention, which has proved useful to us in the last several cycles, and we give those candidates as much time as possible to be the candidate of the party and to ramp up and win. So if I had to pick 3 things I think we need to do going forward, it's that. Rebuild the Obama infrastructure, focus on redistricting reform, and work very hard to get behind a set of candidates for 2014 very early. With that, Mike, I'll be glad to take questions.
All right, and you want me to recognize everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Just so you know, we have John Austin who's going to speak after this, and Congressman Dingell's also going to speak, and Fran from the county party. So let's keep that in mind. I'll start over here first with David. I'm going to switch back and forth. So, and then you'll be up next. Okay. David.
In 2012, did the Democratic Party offer our candidates the so-called campaign in the box? And if so, what was in it?
Yes is the answer, but you need to understand how campaigns are structured inside the Democratic Party. The principal responsibility for legislative races lies with the legislative Democrats in the House and in the Senate. And we work with them to do that. But they are in charge of recruiting, finding, funding, and helping those candidates. We help in that regard. Our statewide candidates, yes, we do offer that assistance to them. We work very closely on our statewide candidates. This is particularly more appropriate in a gubernatorial election year where we have Attorney General and Secretary of State. Talk to Jocelyn Benson about the help that we provide her in 2010. Talk to David Layton. You'll find that we were right there with them the moment they were endorsed, get their campaigns moving.
Go ahead. You're up next.
Hi, my name is Marianne. I have a question about, I was really encouraged to hear Mom talk about cultivating young leadership. And as I look around our party, I see the sort of the usual faces being picked for things. How have you cultivated young leadership, let's say beyond 40, other than Gretchen Whitmer? How have you cultivated young leadership and diverse leadership?
Right. The way we've done that is principally the way I described in terms of going out there statewide and looking for and helping young and diverse candidates run for office locally. That's the farm team, right? Folks who run for school board, folks who run for city council and mayor, folks who run for county office. And we have helped hundreds of folks of all backgrounds, not just young folks, all kinds of backgrounds, start to come up through the system in that way. That's the way to build the grassroots.
Okay. Joe's up next, then Rod, then in the black.
Redistricting is a fairly new issue. Why have we been so unsuccessful in the past?
In terms of redistricting?
No, in terms of electing candidates.
Well, because of the way the districts are drawn, I mean, look, the Republicans...
Before redistricting became this current issue.
Well, that's been 30 years.
No,
frankly,
not for me. For me, it's been about 2 years.
I understand, but the Republicans drew the districts that we struggled with the last decade. John Dingell lost a number of colleagues because of the way the Republicans drew the districts 10 years ago, and then they drew a new set of districts, which are gerrymandered in their favor just recently.
So we're ineffective so long as they have drawn the districts that way?
No, we're not ineffective. We're not going to give up taking the House and the Senate. But again, our votes at the statewide level, you have the president winning by almost 10 points, Debbie Stabenow winning by 21, Democrats taking a majority of the vote. But that majority vote is not translating into seats because of the way the districts are drawn. So we're not going to give up, but we've also got to pursue redistricting reform. I think the evidence is very clear on that.
Roger next, and then the black.
How you doing, Mark? Rod Casey, Ipsy Township. Did you hear the first question I had asked to the black? Okay. What I'd like to know is, all right, you mentioned that, okay, it was diverse on the national level, but still it's not diverse in the state level. Okay, I'd like to know, what are you going to do also this time to ensure black candidates to be fairly represented and supported at the Democratic Party, and the unions to fairly compromise on the issue or not bully the party for their candidates?
Let me talk about diversity. In addition to the points that I made, Rod, I fight every election cycle to make sure that we have a diverse statewide ticket. You take a look at our statewide tickets since I've been chair, always diverse. Take a look at our education board candidates since I've been chair, always diverse. And there are forces, I'll just say this, in this party who don't want that. And I fight internally with them all the time. And frankly, I could use your help. I could use voices like yours and others here to say that diversity is important. We should not assume it because there are forces, there are organizations, there are people who don't think that that's an important consideration. And I'm constantly fighting internally, pushing back against that. You can see when we're successful at the statewide level. The National Convention delegation is just one example of that we're able to have the diversity that's appropriate. But people should not assume that that's automatic. You got to fight for it every cycle.
But you didn't mention about the unions.
What was your question about the unions?
What are you going to do this term, if you're elected, to protect regular voters such as myself from having my votes taken by misguided union leaders?
Rod, it's a big, diverse party. When you're chair, you have to work with grassroots activists, you have to work with local leaders, you have to work with organizations, including labor unions, you have to work with candidates, and you have to work with elected officials. And you have to balance all of that.
Right.
Every one of those organizations, groups, people that I mentioned, has a right to a voice in the party, has a right to organize and get their votes out, be it at an election or at a convention. What I try to do is play referee and make sure the rules are followed and everybody at least has a fair shot at having access. That's my role, to try to make sure that all those folks, all those organizations have a fair opportunity to participate.
Well, last time the rules was manipulated at the convention.
What do you mean last time?
In 2008, it was manipulated. Right when we walked in, we found out the unions had already manipulated the rules, and it was on their platform.
Well, are you referring to the Deborah Thomas
Yes.
Hathaway fight? That was a very close election. There's no question about it. Just like there was a very close vote at the endorsement convention between David Layton and Ricky Bernstein. My job in those situations is to apply the rules as fairly as possible and make sure everybody's got an equal shot.
No, but I'm saying, what I'm asking is, what is you going to do to protect something like that from reoccurring?
By applying the rules, and enforcing the rules that we've got. Make sure that you and everybody that you want to work with and organize has a vote. If some other group wants to organize and bring in their voters, I mean, that's the democratic process. And we're going to continue to maintain that.
Go ahead.
My name's Goodman. We have a small law firm in Detroit. I've been practicing 40, 50 years. A long time. And, I have watched our Michigan Supreme Court go from one of the most liberal, progressive courts in the whole United States and known throughout this country, and I've traveled the country, as a great force for good, for liberalism throughout America. And during the last 10 years, 15 years, that court has gone down the literal figurative toilet to the point where it is now controlled by the most right-wing, reactionary, vicious, anti-people, anti-human faction of any Supreme Court in the nation, and that is known not just here in Michigan, but around the country. And very frankly, sir, I've never met you. I don't have anything personally against you. But I cannot help but hold you and the party leadership you represent responsible for this tragedy, which is killing people in this state, is depriving the consumers of their rights, depriving labor unions of their rights, depriving all of the people in the state of decency and compassion in our judiciary. Now my question to you is, what should be the qualifications for a Supreme Court judge running in this state? What do you say about that? And why do we have this stupid picture to deal with in this state?
Well, in terms of qualifications, I mean, I think you look at the kind of candidates we've nominated. Bridget McCormick, who just got elected, Connie Kelly, and others like that. We, frankly, have been one of the few state parties in the country to actually win elections during this corporate-dominated era. We're not where we need to be, don't get me wrong. But it's a collective effort that has to be made every cycle. And we have some tough choices to make coming 214. What are we going to do on the court? There are going to be 3 spots up on the Michigan Supreme Court. Do we focus on the court? Do we focus on governor? Do we focus on Secretary of State, Attorney General? We've got some collective decisions to make that are not going to be easy.
Well, if we don't do something serious, we're going to be in the same stupid position after that election as we are today, or worse.
And I welcome your help in that effort.
Go ahead, the black. Okay.
My name is Chris Hoffman. I'm a West Point graduate. This cycle, I have Mike O'Brien run against Fred Upton in the 6th Congressional District. He gained 23 points over the last cycle. He got a new version of the band, maybe a little bit of money, but I didn't see a lot of stuff coming from the state party to help out that race that he ran with a great amount of courage. Going back to, I think it's about strategy. And Sun Tzu says, know yourself and know your enemy, win every battle. But if you don't know the enemy and you know yourself, it's 50-50. If you don't know either, you have no chance. I'm convinced that we don't know our opposition. So I'd like to test your knowledge. Can you tell us how it is the Republican Party was able to push through 282 bills in the lame duck session alone? Where are these bills coming from? How are they organizing it? And also, can you explain to me what a vehicle bill is and how they're using that?
Right. Well, 3 questions it sounds like. They did it because they had the votes. That's very simple. They've got the majority.
What was their process? Explain to us what you know about their process, how they're doing it.
Well, a lot of those votes, frankly, are ALEC bills. And I know that's been a long time concern of yours. It's a concern of everybody. They're generated by ALEC. They are model bills that, frankly, are used everywhere in the country. And we've seen a number of them here in Michigan. There are more being introduced now.
Where else are they coming from?
that's the principal place that they're coming from. There's some folks inside Michigan that are generating this. I mean, Dick McClellan, for example.
What organizations are doing it?
Let him fully answer the question, okay? Let him answer the question.
Dick McClellan is a longtime lawyer, Republican lawyer in this state, worked with the Engler administration, helped put together the Mackinac Center. He's one of the principal advocates, authors of a lot of the anti-public education legislation that we're seeing. The DeVosses obviously have a hand in all of that. So there's this whole right-wing network of folks that come up with these laws and push these things through the legislature. What was your last thing about a vehicle bill?
How are they using the vehicle bill and why is it important to us?
A vehicle bill is basically, yeah, basically a bill that you can pass it through one house or the other, let it sit in the other house, and then you change it in the course of the legislative process and change its content quite dramatically, and then move it back through the process. And you know, both sides, when we were in charge of the legislature, we did the same thing. We would have these vehicle bills that would already have been passed through one house, ready to be amended with whatever content we wanted to put into them.
Doug has a question, and then I saw a hand over here. Yep, okay.
Would you mention additional organizations in addition to the Michigan Education Association which have come to your support?
Well, two announced their support this past week, the Carpenters Union and the Laborers Union. And there are others that are coming on board that we'll be announcing over the next couple of weeks. I learned this morning that the party's LGBT caucus has endorsed me for election, and we'll be announcing that and other endorsements in the next 2 weeks.
All right, Tom's question, and then Peggy's the last question. Well, Peggy, then Milton. So Tom, you're up next. Actually, you know, Tom, go ahead and eat. Milton, you're up next. You're good? Okay.
Question, please. Can I have the microphone?
Sure.
I am Thomas Partridge, recent 2010 and 12 candidate
45-second question.
For the
Okay.
Michigan legislature. My question is, what will you do if re-elected state chair to give the public insight, direct insight into the affairs of the Michigan legislature in all branches of government via direct broadcast over the internet? And what will you do to unite the party, especially on election day, to transport voters, the most vulnerable voters in the state, to the polls? We lost apparently in 21 different districts because there was not a sufficient get out the vote / transport voters to the polls on election day program. Thank you.
Next question.
Let's try to think of which order to deal with these. In terms of uniting the party, once this chair's race is over, what's going to unite us is beating Republicans in 214. I mean, that's our goal, right? Once all is said and done, that's what's going to be. I think the other question you had about the legislative races, again, I believe we had active resources, great candidates, good issues. The gerrymandering is a real problem, and that's something that we've got to continue to work on and undertake a big reform effort.
No transportation program to get the voters to the polls on election day. That's probably why we lost 21 districts. Also, no direct access to the legislature via the internet, and the state party offices could facilitate that.
Well, Tom, I mean, I'd urge you to join our email list. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We do a lot of live streaming, give people access to live streaming all the time. We had transportation programs on election day to get people to the polls, and we'll have them again in 214.
They didn't.
Thanks, Tom. Tom, no, you got to respect everybody's time. Peggy, you're up next, then Milton, then the last question right here. Go ahead, Peggy.
Actually, I was going to mention something similar to what Tom just brought up, and that is that when we're talking about this issue of broadening the diversity of the party, it seems to me that we need to do two things. That we, first of all, need to address issues that are of concern to people who are underrepresented. And I don't understand, I'm new to the bureaucracy of the party, so I don't understand how the party endorses issues, but to me it seems important to take positions on, for example, the issue of prison reform and the disenfranchisement of people who are felons and that sort of stuff, former felons. And the second part of that is the disenfranchisement that occurs as a result of people who are economically disenfranchised and therefore don't have access to this great thing, technology that we're all touting, and access to transportation to come to meetings and vote and participate in the democratic process that goes on within the state party.
Now that there's a lot of questions wrapped up in there, and on the issues you specifically talked about, the party has positions, and we have a issue process. You know, we have a resolutions committee. Rod, among others, has participated in that. I welcome all of you to bring those kind of issues to the party. We take issue positions all the time. You'll find our platform and resolutions on a multitude of issues on our website. That's easily accessible. And then help me remember the other pieces of the question.
Not everybody has access to the website. So
right, and we still do other forms of communication. My staff spent the last week doing a lot of mail. I mean, we don't abandon form of communication. We still communicate by fax to some folks. So the social media have not replaced the other forms of communication. They've been added to them. And that's a challenge for all of us going forward to make sure we get all this out in the appropriate way to folks who don't necessarily have access to electronic means.
Milton, and then the last question will be the other lady in this black. You good? Okay, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, Georgie.
One of the sort of most disheartening moments for me as a Michigan Democrat and as a woman occurred last September when we had the convention in Lansing. And I was in the Women's Caucus meeting, and there were several women in the meeting waiting for it to start. And it was a meeting that actually never started. And you know, this in a year when you know, Michigan women were attacked. We had our House legislators who were shut down. We had Vagina Gate, you know, and then, you know, to have this, you know, in September, in late summer, to have that situation where finally one of the women just took the mic about a half hour into that caucus session to say, well, we're going to start this meeting now. We had Debbie Stabenow waiting to come in and address the group with a brass band, you know, and she came in. It was just one of the most disheartening moments for me, and for a lot of women. I see some nods, you know, here in the room about that situation. Understanding certain, you know, the autonomy, understanding the caucus, understanding all of that. I have been watching, and I think many of us in this room have been watching the Women's Caucus go, you know, really go down the tubes in terms of being a rallying place. You know, the Women's Luncheon on the day of Jeff Jack had about, I think, it was, you know, the participation in that room was very much down from the prior year. And this is a moment when we need to be bringing all of our constituent groups together and strengthening them, understanding structural issues. You know, it was the same thing with the candidates and the House candidates, and that being, you know, the selection, and that being run by the House Dems and, you know, the Senate Dems. But understanding all of this, there has to be coordination. There has to be some unifying strategy so that we're leveraging all of the power that we really have, but remains untapped, in my opinion. So, what can you tell us about, you know, unifying the constituent groups, getting the grassroots involved? You know, and the Women's Caucus was just one example that, you know, I witnessed. It was just one of the saddest moments, especially in a year when Michigan women were under attack. We had damn vaginal probes introduced this week. And it's not on Snyder's agenda, like right to work wasn't. What is going
Question's got, it sounds like me, like multiple parts, Georgie, so let me try to tackle this. Look, no, that's fine. Look, if people are unhappy with a county party, with a district party, with a caucus, it's Democratic with a small d. I urge people to get involved and change it. And that's not directed at the Women's Caucus, but we have these functional problems from time to time. We also have, it's available in our rules, that people can form alternative organizations. Now, there's only going to be one Women's Caucus. We're not going to have multiple caucuses. But if people want to form alternative organizations under the umbrella of the party, that's available as well. On the broader question that you asked, Jody, we have the largest number of constituency caucuses of any state party in the country. And I pride myself on going out and getting communities involved in the Democratic Party through that way. Whether it's Muslim Americans or Greek Americans, the whole spectrum. Now they struggle from time to time. You know, you go through leadership changes and so forth. Mike Magich, who's back here, starting a business council for the Michigan Democratic Party, something we've long needed. And I've looked for years for somebody to head that up, and now Mike is heading that up. So that's how I would address that. Get involved in a caucus, a club, a party that you think is dysfunctional, and change it. But also know that the state party is very supportive of broadening our outreach and creating and bringing new groups in.
All right, one last question because he's the sheriff, and then you can close out.
So I've heard from both candidates, and we talked a lot about this diversity. So first I would ask both of you to define what you mean by that. We're just talking about race, we're talking about gender, we're talking about diversity. And then you mentioned something about a diverse ticket. Not quite sure what you mean by that, because I went to the last, let's say at the statewide level, and you see a lot of diversity there. And then if we go outside, if we Metro Detroit out, and we look at the state, and with Detroit out of it, where is that diversity? Where is that overall diversity? My last piece of that is, I've heard both talk about a strategy. Those are just, what is the strategy? What are we talking about? What are the specifics? And if you have something online, great. I don't see it. If you have some specifics, great. But I keep hearing this is what we're going to do. I don't see any outcomes that are consistent with what we say we're going to do. So if we've got this broad tent, I don't see a lot of people in elected office reflecting that. Again, if we X out of Metro Detroit.
By diversity, I mean everybody. Whether it's our friends in the LGBT community, women, all ethnic groups, all racial groups, that's diversity. And again, I would urge you to take a look at what our National Convention delegation look far more diverse than that. I'd be glad to take you around the state and introduce you to diverse candidates that we helped get elected at the local level all around the state. That's the purpose of the programs that I put in place, so those folks have the resources they need to get elected. And I'll be glad to show that to you. Take you around the state and meet those individuals who we helped elect, so we have a more diverse party.
Well, I might take you up on that. And then the follow-up is, are they prepared now to go to the next level? Because you said that's what this is about.
Yes.
As a proving ground or a farm club to get to the next level. So I might take you up on going around the state to see those candidates, and then talk about what our strategy is to have those people hold statewide elected office.
I want to go
Call me Sheriff, glad to do it.
Go ahead, Mark, if you want to wrap up, or you done?
I think I'll just leave it this way. We've got a lot of challenges as a party, and particularly, again, this redistricting reform. We are not going to get our fair share of the legislative and congressional seats in this state unless we undertake to do redistricting reform. That has got to be a top priority of our party, while at the same time we fight to take back the legislature. The second thing we need to do is we've got to recreate the Obama infrastructure in the state, which has left us. And that has to be a top priority as well. That will enable us to do a year-round campaign, and we're going to continue to grow the technology of the party as well. So if I had to pick three things that I want to focus on when I'm reelected, it would be those three things. Thanks very much. We'll see you at the convention.
Steve, all right, so we've got a few people that are going to say a couple things. Steve Branzini, president of University Bank. Then we'll have John Austin, and then the congressman.
Just a few words. I handed out a flyer. It's got information about an event that the party and our bank, University Bank, I'm the CEO of University Bank, are putting on a week from tomorrow night, and with a special guest of my good friend, Congressman Dingle, who, together with I, will do a question and answer period with the audience after the movie, and Conan Smith will be moderating that question and answer period. You know, why is it important? We just listened to a very long discussion about how to best organize the Democratic Party, right? One of the best ways to get people motivated and get involved in the party is put information out there and have them absorb information that motivates them and gets them angry about the issues that are out there and do something about it, right? You look at the flyer, look at the second line here, right? If you're not engaged by the end of this movie, you weren't paying attention, okay? And I assure you that every word there is true, okay? I mean, this movie is impactful. If you don't think this is a Democratic issue, I assure you it is. You know, when people understand fully the evil influence that the mega banks and the Wall Street investment banks have on our country, okay, they will come to us and get involved. So I urge you, I know a lot of you have your own networks of people, whether you're head of a local union, whether you're head of a local group, whatever, get the information out to your people. My contact information is on the back. My email address is at the bottom. Your people can all get free tickets if you just get pre-registered. Otherwise, it's $8 or $10 at the door. But please, if you need the flyer, send me an email. I'll be happy to get the information to you. And please send it out to your networks. The more people we can get in the room to hear the congressman talk about this issue, the more people we can get organized and motivated to help. Thank you.
All right, John, you want to come up and speak? All right.
President of the State Board of Education.
Can everybody hear him okay?
When I got up this morning, I thought I was coming down to a nice, small Ann Arbor Democrats meeting. I told the congressman I didn't realize the big artillery was being wheeled up. So let me just take a brief moment. I appreciate the chance to talk with you, to talk about education, where I hope we can go as Democrats in the next few years, between the next big gun, Congressman Dingell, who I'll lay down a little covering fire on those topics. Education, there's nothing more important for us to do better at to support our teachers and improve our schools. I am really tired of playing defense, though the Republicans did a lot of really bad things in lame duck, right to work, the punctuation point, but one thing they did not get done, because we worked together and called it out, is they had this string of bills that Mark alluded to. Richard McClellan, this kind of Darth Vader figure from the Engler era, who authored the voucher program before. He was writing these bills for the Republicans that they were going to try to get through in lame duck. One would have opened up all sorts of new private schools, specialty schools, for-profit run schools, unlimited, no charters, no quality control. The other bill, they put on the Education Achievement Authority bill, a bunch of stuff that would allow them to authorize new schools unregulated across the state. And they are developing this financing program, which is basically a voucher plan where your students will spend their money in this new market of schools. Now, we called it out for what it was, which is this is going to be a new Wild West of unregulated, largely private sector schools. It's going to destroy funding for the public schools that exist. And because we did that, and you all helped, we were successful. They did not pass it in lame duck. They didn't try this new specialty school bill, because even on this point, Republican legislators do not want to be complicit in blowing up public education. So it just showed, they could care less about destroying unions, and they showed that. But they do want to, they don't want to have their fingers on blowing up public education. So it shows that on that, we can win. Now, the governor was supposed to present more of this stuff in his budget. He hasn't. I think they're walking it back. But we need to be very vigilant. And if this stuff comes up again in the form anywhere near what it was, we have to beat it down like whack-a-mole, because even if they say it's not on their agenda, we know what that means. It may come back on their agenda. So to do this, the state board, we're having forums around the state, including one in Ann Arbor, March 11th, that the education community is putting together, so that we have a full public debate and discussion about any big ideas, any reform ideas, any financing proposals, so that we can get that fixed, beat back, and advance changes that we do, and get to the business of better supporting public schools. Let me just talk 1 minute about where I hope we can go as Democrats in 2014. I do think it's important that we be angry, but we have to do more than be angry about what they did to us and what they're trying to do to us. We have to say, what's the better Michigan, what's the brighter Michigan that we want to build, and sell that. I think one piece is what you've heard a lot about today, what the president did so wonderfully, what the convention and the inaugural, when I was in that crowd, we're in 21st century America, 21st century Michigan. It is a wonderful, diverse place. Let's celebrate it. Women are equals. They have control of their bodies. Immigrants are welcome. Immigrants are a source of refreshment and strength. Let's welcome them, not chase them away. The gay couples, the gay community is fantastic. Celebrate it. Welcome them, not chase those people out of our state. Hardworking people. Michiganders value hard work above all else. And what they did with right to work is they just stuck a pencil in the eye of the hardest workers, the teachers and the nurses and others. So that's not what we're about. The Michigan people are with us in terms of who we are and who we want to be. The other piece is we have to have a clear message on what really matters to grow jobs and improve the economy. And on this one, the Michigan people are also with us. They know that the most important things that grow jobs and create a better economy are having great schools and universities that are affordable as a path to opportunity, that have cities that have basic services, that have arts and parks and make them places people want to live, that have basic infrastructure. So we can win with a message that says, invest in our people, invest in our communities, invest in our beautiful state and beautiful outdoors as a place to escape and enjoy. All of those things have been cut. All of those things have been diminished. All of those things have been run down. Cutting taxes and ending government is not the answer. And more than Democrats in Michigan understand this. And we have to be, so here's what we're going to do to make this state a place people want to live and raise a family and find a better opportunity. And a state where people get a great education. Those are the things that create jobs. So I hope we'll do those two things looking ahead. Celebrate who we are in the 21st century here in Michigan. And make it clear that this state can be a wonderful place to live and work and grow a business. And we've got the plan to do it. So thank you.
We'll have three questions for John. Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like you to delineate your stand on charter schools.
I, like Bill Clinton and others, am for charters if they're of quality and produce better education, principally where we need them, and developed with local education communities so that we use them as a tool to create a new option if we need it and where we need it. So quality charters can be part of the landscape. Not for, I mean, the problem with charters we've had in Michigan is that John Engler opened up a total freebooting regime with more for-profit run charters because people were willing to authorize them. And when they lifted the cap last year, we did not even, they wouldn't even agree to any quality control on new charters, so that the Leona Group and others who demonstrably educate kids terribly, they can open more charters.
Yeah.
That is exactly the wrong way to increase choice and quality options.
What about the money?
And the money obviously goes from existing schools into these new options. So we have to have a strategy for where do we need new choices, how does that increase education, and not have this open market, which is the thing we're fighting most viciously from the right wing right now.
Any other questions for John? All right. Go ahead.
Jim McIntyre, when was the last time Democrats in Michigan ran on funding education? I missed it.
Yeah, and see, this is one where I think we cannot be bashful, but we have to be aggressive in saying the public, and this, we've got some focus groups and polling results from this message and development project that I'm involved with. They basically ask the question, are you willing to invest more in education? People will. We have to show them a way to do it that they want to vote for. Because we need to spend, we can't be afraid to say, we don't need to spend more money, we don't need to raise more money. We absolutely have to raise more money and invest in the things people value the most about Michigan. Absolutely.
All right, last question.
Yeah.
Who authorized Mosaic for Muskegon Heights? Was that, did the state?
That was
or was it emergency management?
Who authorized Mosaica? The state, the governor took over 2 school districts, Highland Park and Muskegon Heights. Here again, he could have done something better, which is have another public school district or university help take them over and even have a good charter operator. Instead, the governor picked bad private firms with a terrible track record to run these schools, which is counterproductive.
So you guys had nothing
No,
to
we
say
had nothing
about
to do with that. That was because they'd been taken over by the EFM, and then the governor could say, okay, now we're going to appoint so-and-so to run them. And in this case, they chose one mediocre and one bottom feeder charter operator, Leona being the one in Highland Park, which is the bottom feeder.
Out the information
Yeah,
about Mosaica's reputation and track record?
Next Tuesday at our state board meeting, we're going to publicly report on the performance of all charters by the authorizer. Because the authorizer is the one responsible. If Bay Mills Community College is operating bunches of schools and basically turning them over to private companies, and the kids aren't getting educated, the trustees at Bay Mills need to be called on account. Same with Grand Valley, same with Central. So that's our contribution. Now, The governor should have vetoed the charter legislation last year, which included Betsy DeVos had meetings with Republican legislators who were nervous because they didn't want to support expansion without some quality control. And she said, no, no quality control. And so the governor did not stand up and veto that. And I told him, I said, you should veto that. This is wrong. And he was not willing to do it. That's another example of his abdication of any leadership and letting the right wing do whatever they want.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. All right, we're going to try to wrap up by 12:15 with your help, but we're going to have the congressman come up and give us a report from Washington, and then we're also going to have Representative Zemke, our elected officials, Bob from Progressive Forward, and our leadership from the county party too, Fran as well as Linda.
Good morning. I want to thank you for that, but you're wasting the good time of our chairman and yourself by applauding me. First of all, thank you. It has gone to my head, and I'm very grateful. Second, the lovely Deborah's in the back of the room, and I want to have her. Third, I want to compliment you, my friend Michael, for a superb meeting, very well run, and enormously well attended. I would note not only of the membership, but by golly, I noticed all the elected officials are here. I want to say welcome to our two candidates for state chair. This is not, I want to make it clear to you on my part, an appearance against anybody who is running for state chair. My remarks will be brief this morning because it is late.
Can you please use the microphone? We've got older adults.
I can. Okay.
A challenge to hear. Thank you.
I tend to have bad luck with mics. not Michael's, but mics. Having said that, how many of you came to the inauguration? Well, Debbie and I and my staff, I'm very proud. We did something which we regard, I'm all right. Okay. Which we regard as, thank you, I need help. Which we regarded as essentially ranking with the loaves and fishes. We had something like 650 requests, and we had something like 250 tickets. We got everybody in. So, and the lovely Deborah ran the Michigan party, which was credited in the Washington Post as being one of the two very best of the inaugural balls, although it was not official. But it was 3 floors of eating, drinking, partying, celebrating the inauguration of President Obama, and being good Democrats. So we hope that you all enjoyed it. We're very, very proud of the turnout of our people. So we thank you for all coming. Now, I will try to avoid falling down one more time. But having said that, the Congress has not yet really started. Debbie and I are just back here from the first of our congressional retreats, where we were off talking about the plans of the session, including meetings with the Vice President, President Obama, and of course our wonderful friend Bill Clinton. Having said these things, we've talked about a lot of things. Moving forward on the Affordable Care Act, which you know is going to go into effect this year. That will go into effect in 2014. we're trying to deal with the continuation of the perils of Pauline, or what we more directly call the sequester or the cliff. We think we avoided the cliff, but the sequester or sequestration is very much a danger to us all. And I think we will be able to avoid it, because I think the Republicans have figured out that this is not something which they want to have on their souls, and they found out that it caused them lots of trouble in this last election. Now, having said these things, you are all concerned with the one big current issue. We all saw what happened at Newtown, a repeat of a number of other serious and awful events which have cost us very severely. And this was pretty much brought to our attention by the events which we saw at Newtown. And I think if any of you read the article that former Secretary of State Baker and I put in the Washington, rather in the New York Times, will know generally about my feelings, and I'll not enunciate them. But having said that, I've been back home, talked to all of our people about what is the situation with regard to legislation of this kind. To give you a short summary of what I think will happen, it will probably originate in the Senate. I think that the talk is that it will that it is going to recognize the fact that the Constitution, Second Amendment, does protect the rights of American citizens to own firearms for legitimate sporting and defense purposes. I cannot tell you exactly what will be in the legislation, but I'm going to try and see to it that significant progress is made. One of the things of which I'm rather proud is that some years ago, the NRA and I and the Brady people and Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy and I put together a piece of legislation which goes a long way to seeing to it that the instant check works, to see to it that those who can't have firearms under the law, or should not have firearms under the law, do not get firearms under the law. And it has not been well administered because the money has not been there. They kept some of the carrot, and then they gave no money, and they took away the stick. So we're going to try and see to it that that is there, and that other steps are taken to see to it that there is a proper set of circumstances with regard to who can and should have firearms under the law, and who can then do so. So having said those things, the session is showing that the Republicans feel a little bit spanked about the last elections. You know, they lost a few seats. And regrettably, they didn't lose enough seats. We will continue working on that. And just a word of congratulations to all of you. As you know, this district here runs the best get-out-the-vote operation in this state. Yeah. We are very proud of it. And Debbie and I are very, very proud of the fact that you and our other people in other parts of this district work so hard to make that work. And I hope you're proud. We've got just a couple of Republicans that escaped, and we're going to get them next time. So, but having said these things, we are now coming up an election of our officers for the 12th district. We are no longer the 15th or the 16th. We're now the 12th. Numbers don't matter a darn bit, because a rose, whatever you call it by, will still smell as sweet. Having said these things, we are going to try and see to it that we develop again a good panel of officers with full participations of all parts of the district, both ethnically, racially, and geographically, so that everybody feels that they belong to their district. We're going to try and see to it that Labor and other Democrats are all active and contented participants in this undertaking. I've asked Mark Gaffney if he will run for the chairman. I don't know, is Mark here?
He called me. He's out in New Boston. So.
He was here. He, as you know, is a longtime faithful, effective Democrat, and he will, I think, bring some remarkable experience to us in terms of running. I want to say a word of congratulations to our previous district chairman. He has, where is he?
Graham, he had to leave.
Graham Teal has done a magnificent job, and the others of our officers have done a magnificent job. We are very, very proud and very, very grateful to them for their leadership. And we're also very proud of your working, because as you know, a leader isn't worth a whoop if he doesn't have followers. Now, having said that, this is one of the peculiarities. You've heard a lot about the division in Washington. And one of the peculiarities of this division is that a lot of people are saying it's the Democrats and the Republicans fighting. Well, that's true to a limited degree. It is also, however, the harsh fact that the Republicans refuse to follow their leader, Speaker Boehner. And the end result is that he is looking very unfortunate. He's a pretty decent fellow. And quite frankly, I hate to see his fellow Republicans kicking him around the way they are. Although if they got to kick somebody around, it's much better than kick the Republican. But having said these things, I think you should anticipate that we're going to have the same troubles that we did in the last Congress, perhaps a little less. I'm looking forward to seeing President Obama recognizing that he now doesn't have the burden of a second election looking him in the eye, and he'll be able to feel more free and more emancipated. He has a few more votes in the Senate, and he also, thank God, has a few more votes in the House. It will be our job to build on that the next election and see to it that this party is ready for that. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the privilege of being with you. Here is the microphone. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Thank you. We'll have one or two questions. Go ahead.
I know most of us have seen the letter from you and the rest of the members of the Democratic Congressional Delegation on the state chair race for those who want to dance. So I wonder if you can just comment on that, how you see the race of these things moving.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. That is a very good question, and it's one I think that's on the minds of every one of us. First of all, I want to make it clear, my comments are not anti-Mark Brewer. Mark's a friend. He's worked hard on behalf of this party, and we owe him a debt. But if you saw the letters signed by every one of your federally elected office holders, our two senators, Senator Levin and Debbie Stabenow, and also by all of the congressmen, including myself, you heard us, or saw us, coming out in favor of Lon Johnson. Now, Lon happens to be, as you all know, a friend of mine, and he ran a very, very good campaign in this district on my behalf. That has a modest impact on my judgments, but it does not have any impact on the judgments of my colleagues, nor on the part of the two union presidents, President Bob King and President Hoffa. Their reason is that they feel that with all of the troubles they have, that it is time that this party be less dependent on them and more able to do the things it has to do by attracting other Democrats. My history as a Democrat goes back to the days of Sophie Williams and Neil Stabler. And I also saw how a party in those days ran. We had all kinds of organizational and recruiting efforts going on. I don't see those anymore. We had some rather remarkable fundraising undertakings going on. And when a cabinet officer or somebody like that came into Michigan, we would have fundraisings around it. We had business organizations, women's organizations. We had all kinds of organizations, Hungarians and us Polacks, me, John Mingle, who were interested in seeing to it that we had outreach that went all over. The Bible tells us, unless you have vision, the people perish. Now, our friend Mark has done a good job. The time is, however, for somebody who will do a better job, utilizing new mechanisms, new things, bringing us new leadership, and making it possible for us to run the kind of party that will take this over. It is true, we have been gerrymandered badly. One of the reasons we were gerrymandered badly was we lost state representative elections. And it is true that that caused us troubles in this election. The harsh fact of the matter is, if we're going to complain about that, rather than getting out and taking back some of those other congressional districts, we've all got troubles. And if we're going to do that instead of going back and taking out the state legislative and getting the Supreme Court and doing the other things that we've got to do to be an effective party, we're never going to amount to a hill of beans in this state. So this is, again, I repeat, not hostile to Mark. He's a friend and I'm fond of him. But the harsh fact of the matter is we simply have to have a change in view of those of us who serve you in Washington and the two major labor unions who work with the Democratic Party over the years, that we need more effective leadership in this party. And our thesis is that Lon Johnson will bring that effective leadership. And I can tell you, those of you who remember the election that occurred around here in 2002, you'll remember that was a fierce election. Some of us were on my side and some of us were on the other side. And it was fierce. And it tended to show how a party should organize. Lon ran that race, and he did a spectacularly good job. And I just hope that you will take that as proof of the fact that he will provide us the leadership we need in Lansing and the leadership for this party.
Thanks, Congressman.
And thank you all for your friendship and patience. Deborah and I love you and are deeply grateful. I wish I could have mentioned the high quality of the elected officials that I saw around us today. I love to do that because it's fun to praise really great public servants and good Democrats. But I hope you'll take my word as saying, I'm so proud to be in the same room with people of that quality, and I know you are. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.